Before we get started, I would like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. We have taken a screenshot of an example of the attendee interface that you will be probably seeing on your screen. You should see something that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right corner. You're listening in your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation, but please keep in mind that due to the time constraint, we will collect all these questions and address them during the question and answer session at the end of today's presentation. Before we go to the presentation, I would like to take a few minutes and go through who are the presenters today. The presenter today is Raj Gummadapu. He's a practice head of EPM, and I'll be your moderator, the director of strategic marketing and process excellence at Techwave. I would like to go over quickly about Techwave, who we are, and where do we play. Techwave has been in the industry for over a decade. We are a very nimble and focused right-sized partner delivering cutting-edge solutions. We have been featured in Inc. 500, Forbes, Business Journal, CIO, CFO Review, to name a few. And one of the few things that none of the industry doesn't have is our client retention rate is 100%, and we're really very proud of it. We have all experienced resources throughout and we recruit from some of the top engineering and business schools. We are a global company, headquartered in Exton, Pennsylvania, but covering almost all the regions across the globe. We also have strong alliances with all our partners. Here is the general overview of the company. I would like to show you next is where we are, our complete gamut of services. We offer enterprise performance management, infrastructure management services, ERP analytics, big data analytics is huge for us, CRM, and each one of these practices have a practice head dedicated to the practice. Digital, we play a lot in that area also. Application development is one of our bread and butter. So enterprise information management, we have a lot of success stories. If you want to listen in that, please reach back to us. Validation services, staff augmentation. We are end-to-end service provider, providing any services you have in the IT service industry. And there is a global development center located in the next slide. Okay, so our global development center is located in India. We serve all over the globe through that. And I would like to take this opportunity to introduce the speaker. Today's speaker is Raj Gummadapu. He is the Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Techwave Consulting. He is a chartered accountant and a CPA with extensive experience in financial performance management. He's considered as a pioneer in this area, and he has served almost all the major Big Four consulting firms, giving his expertise in technology solutions. As I said, he's considered as a pioneer, and it's a great honor to have him on today's call. Over to you, Raj.
Thank you, Raj. It's interesting, Raj and Raj doing the presentation in a great afternoon. Thank you, and thank you for all the people who joined to listen in to this session. It's actually a very interesting session, and that's not a new thing. A lot of organizations strive to get to a driver-based forecasting as a successful implementation in their financial processes and enterprise processes. But again, as you see, today's world, most of the organizations are stuck to that annual planning process where they put a lot of effort and time in completing annual planning and going down to gathering a lot of information, and then get to a stage where they get tired of doing that and then put it into a shelf and only look at that once a month compared to their actual performance. But given the nature of the environment and factors that influence business in today's world, annual planning process just doesn't cut it. We have to have a robust and integrated driver-based forecasting, and which actually can also be used for planning as well. But having that clear visibility into forecasting and being able to have an agility in the finance function to be able to complete a forecasting process with a quick turnaround is must in today's environment, and a lot of CFO organizations and as well as the business functions across the enterprise are going towards this. So is it required, driver-based forecasting? Absolutely. And in today's conversation here today, we will look at some of the best practices with our expertise in implementing these solutions in food service industry, especially food service distribution industry, and then and kind of really look at how some of the drivers can be identified and can be integrated into the performance management overall for better results and successfully able to achieve planned targets that organizations have. In addition to the agility, the other major thing that is required today is alignment with different functional processes, right? Gone are again those days where finance is being able to do entire planning process and be able to complete that for management, because today every function wants to get involved and be able to own their numbers and being able to address to the senior management what they have come up with, why there are changes and all that stuff. So that an alignment of the finance organization with all other functional organizations is very critical. And then accuracy is a big factor. If you are able to do forecasting and every month organization comes off far off of it, then there is no fun in that, because nobody would have a belief in the process. So it's very important to have an accuracy that is very close to reality, and being able to master at that is again very important. In awareness of the overall internal factors and external factors, especially external factors, right? When you have much better control of internal factors that changes in the organization, but being able to understand the inflation and other industry trends and issues is very important as you build your models for driver-based forecasting. So it's very important to address today's challenges in business management and financial performance management. It's very important to have a driver forecasting process implemented in the organization, and food service industry, distribution industry is no exception for that. And going to the next level, right? Even when you do forecasting or planning, some of the questions that a lot of management always get struck with is, first of all, who has come up with these numbers? How did they come up with? And every week I'm seeing this information and that changes. And why does it change every week? What is the reason behind it? If you don't follow driver-based forecasting, if you do follow only traditional approach, then the teams that are involved are majority of their time they're spending on updating the forecast and number crunching process, and if most of the organizations it's done by finance only with very little interfacing with the functional or operational teams. So it kind of gets there into the opinion-based approach, like, hey, this is 5%, it could be 6% this month, and that kind of stuff, without real backing of supporting documents and real metrics. But if you migrate to driver-based forecasting, then it gives you a real visibility into what are the trends, how historically we've been doing, and how that links, how one function efficiency and the process links to other functions. And it also allows you to be able to quickly turn around, make few changes, and being able to ultimately see the results on what are the impact of those changes on the overall financials. and then being able to perform scenario-based analysis. And it's a common thing that every financial or any other business analytics person talk about scenario-based analytics, but you'll not be able to do that unless you clearly understand what are the drivers, what are the different metrics that drive your performance. And then ultimate goal of this is not ultimately being able to do the forecasting process. The ultimate goal of this whole exercise is to be able to manage your business using tools like driver-based forecasting and analytics that provided with the approach. So given these two things, you now understand it's very important to migrate to a process that is driver-based forecasting from a traditional approaches of siloed forecasting and ad hoc forecasting processes, or doing annual planning, just annual planning, and hoping to have a best results throughout the year. With that said, once you decide to do the driver-based forecasting, then the next set of questions comes into play. What are the drivers? I mean, there are so many metrics that organization can generate, right? There is information being collected on everything. So there are tons of metrics. So what is the right drivers to be used? What level of details we should be able to go forward? How the stakeholders in the business can update and use the drivers effectively without kind of breaking their head and spending a lot of time on just doing the forecasting. And then ultimately, how does this whole thing kind of integrates into a rolling forecasting process where you have a clear visibility into not only short-term, but also the long-term financial performance of the organization. So for that, we have a solution. We have, with our experience and expertise, we have kind of built driver-based models, especially this is considering the food service distribution industry, where the P&L has been is kind of segmented into various models that drives the various components of the P&L, and then we have kind of built a process that integrates these models across different metrics that are used, and ultimately be able to show real impact of financial performance through utilizing the drivers. So that's what we are going to talk about. Kind of look at the components of this and understand how those components are impacting your financial performance, ultimately the P&L. This view, you can look at it at the business unit level, or you can look at it at different levels of your organization. It could be regions, could be countries, could be districts. So ultimately, having a right level of information gathered and using right components with the right drivers is where the message is today, so that you can clearly understand the P&L performance, not only from what happened historically, but also how it's going to turn out given the trends and everything. So now, with that said, we will go into a bit more details of each one of these components. So the next component that we are going to be looking at is the volume, sales, and contribution margin analysis, right? The top portion of your P&L. For every business, I mean, food service we are talking about here, but every business, the volume, the sales volume is what drives everything else. And even in food service industry, that's a case. Your volume of sales and segmented across different channels of your customers. You could have a local customers, or you could have contract customers, or a big chains, multi-unit customers. So every channel is providing you sales volume, and that ultimately drives various components of your operational metrics, and as well as the financial data or financial performance. So if you really look at the sales volume, I was talking about the customer segmentation. From a local customer standpoint, especially in this industry, you will have so many customers and so many changes that happens with the customers, where customer comes and goes, buys for a couple of weeks, and then tries a different approach for other weeks. So going down to level of details at each customer may not be practical. So it's always advised to look at that and see if we can roll that information up to a particular regional level or segment level or district level, and then apply the trends to that data to really understand how the sales or sales volume is being produced from that segment. You can use year-over-year growth rates, or you can use when you use year-over-year growth rates, the other thing that you may miss is some of it is what is the latest trend that's happening. What I know we are growing at this percentage for last year to this year, but what has been the latest trend of last 13 weeks or last quarter? So having combination of those two metrics, really understanding your growth rates compared to the previous years, and having understanding the real trend for recent history, combined with having a visibility into major factors that drive the performance, right? Whether it could be holidays or it could be some special events at the business unit level, having that information at handy would help really being able to understand the trends and then being able to effectively forecast the volume. Again, the goal here is build those metrics, right? Use those trends and then being able to automatically produce what your forecasting should be for a particular period or week or year. And then on top of it, a person analyzing that data can say, okay, this month we could have some exception, and that exception is this, and we have to adjust this by this, and this is the reason. That approach is completely different and driver-based compared to where you are manually going and saying, okay, this is this, and this is how much I'm going to sell, add up all the customers, and kind of real manual approach, right? So the driver-based forecasting kind of provides you the flexibility of being able to understand your sales performance, volume performance using the drivers, and have a flexibility of providing adjustments, and then at the same time being able to compare that to your actual information and the trends. Again, like I said in a couple of minutes back, doing the driver-based forecasting is not an activity that you would do and then do the analytics after that. I think driver-based forecasting, and I strongly believe in this, is in itself is an analytical process where, as you are forecasting, you are understanding how the performance is actually coming out and what are the various things that are impacting your business with the trends and everything. And that's how we recommend to build the models, and that's how we kind of say consider the information that is required to both do analytics and the forecasting to be handy when you are building these models for your stakeholders. I think once you have a volume, then goes into really dollarizing that volume, right? And understanding what your sales amount would be. And there you have to understand your pricing trends. You can apply the same trends that we're talking about, how the actual price is being varied and what's the growth rates and all that stuff. But the biggest factor there is inflation, and how the inflation is kind of impacting your business, and doing some studies and analytics around the market data on the inflation, and then kind of baking that into your overall sales dollar planning or amount planning is critical. And again, the only things that you have to really worry about here is understanding the trends and updating them for any exceptions. And inflation should be a guidance that should be coming from organizational analytics of external data. Once you have a sales volume and the sales dollars, the next thing that you want to understand, especially in the food service distribution industry, is the contribution margin, and how much of that volume, how much of that sales is really contributing to your margins and towards your operational expenses and everything. And again, this is driven by your cost of goods sold and the trends around that, and the margin trends, and how you are able to kind of generate margins across different segments of the customers, whether it's local customers or contract customers and multi-unit or a big chains corporate customers. So every one of them would have a different approach and understanding the trends around each one of that level and apply the proper trends to each one of those segments will give you an accurate results around computer margin or contribution margin in this case. Now I'm moving on to the next aspects of income statement drivers, where we kind of have an operational metrics here. When we say operational metrics, it's important to understand that volume analysis that we have done to get to a sales number also drives various other aspects of your business operations. And then really understanding how much you are selling in terms of the volume is going to be influencing how much you are buying, how much you are stocking, how you are delivering, what's your throughput, is some of the additional metrics that needs to be derived so that you can actually link them to other aspects of your income statement, such as what kind of rebates you are going to be getting from your vendors, and how your operations is basically using those, and how you can use the efficiencies to deliver operation side of the P&L metrics that you need. So the biggest importance has to be given in driver-based forecasting to really derive those operational metrics forecasts as well, along with the sales volume metrics that we have already looked at. There also you can apply the trends, like if you are selling this much, how much you should be buying, what should be your inbound volume, what should be your outbound volume, what should be your delivery volume. And those kind of things have to be really looked at carefully and apply the trends and use them as a drivers. Again, we are talking about few set of drivers. We're not kind of exploding this into various small things. We're kind of focusing on key important drivers for business performance. Once you have operational metrics analyzed, then you have the other major component of the income statement, especially the top section of it, down to the gross margin in food service industry, is what are the rebates that you are getting from your customers, and how that influences your overall performance of the gross margins. Again, that rebates can be kind of divided into direct attributable rebates to your buying patterns from the vendors, like your sales volume or buying volume, inbound volume, and the other some of it is like let's say you have to bill bags and some of the charges that you can pass on to the vendors. Those can be kind of measured at the percentage of the sales. So if you really look at those direct rebates, then you can use your inbound volume to analyze that, and you can understand how those things are related, and then put them into the action there. And if you go to the here I'm in the next slide, where some of the things that are indirect can be used to drive from the sales percentage of the sales, and use those as the metrics for your organization. Once you have that major component covered, then you have some of the cash discounts and spoilage and few other COGS adjustments that would be there, which can clearly be driven through the percentage of the sales as a driver, right? Instead of going and kind of doing a detailed planning at each one of them, you can come up with you can configure your model to come up with percentage of sales trends, and then really look at how that is kind of moving from past comparison, where we really recommend to provide historical percentages as well, so that the stakeholder who is doing this planning can apply their additional judgment in updating the numbers that are provided through the models. So it's very important to kind of have that ready information for them at the fingertips. Once you have considered all the COGS adjustments, then you have a clear visibility onto your gross margin level information on your P&L. Now you have looked at your volume, you looked at your sales, and you looked at your margins, and then you are also looking at additional factors that influence your overall gross margins from your business unit, and then make the adjustments that are required based on the drivers. and then ultimately come out of the gross margin. With the all in all, what we have done here is truly we have used drivers around the volume, drivers around the inflation and sales, drivers around your margins, and then ultimately drove your gross margins line on your income statement. Now, once you have built that integrated approach, then you can just go and change your volume and see how that has an impact on gross margins into your business unit. Moving on to kind of once you have gross margin, then we will have the focus on the operating expenses for us to get down to really the net margins and other stuff. So if you go down to the direct labor, then one of the biggest component of the expense for the food service industry is the direct labor. But a lot of times there are a lot of mistakes done in terms of how this particular expenditure is planned or forecasted. Really, you look at your GL-based expense growth or how you are spending and all that stuff, but that really doesn't drive that expense. What drives the expense, the direct labor expense, is your efficiency levels in your operations. So really understanding what is the efficiency through what is the throughput, how many man-hour cases for man-hour or pieces for man-hour that can be moved effectively in your business drives how much you're going to spend on this particular line. So and then once you have that model, being able to benchmark with other business units within the organization, and also you can use external factors, external help as well to understand the industry's trends, to really gives your organization a benchmark that needs to be driven towards, and also identify who is the best performance versus who needs an improvement in this area. So really, for doing that kind of analysis with the direct labor, in the previous slides we were talking about operational metrics, and getting a handle on those operational metrics and linking them to your driver-based direct labor model helps you to really deliver ultimate output that is going to be achievable and manageable with this kind of expense. And then few additional factors that you can consider is what is your right size team that you should have in order to have a good handle on the overtime expenditure and few other big expenditure that could probably influence your overall cost structure can be kind of optimized. This is a continuous process. Once you have the model, once you have the levers that you can pull and understand how P&L can be impacted, then you can start acting in the direction of getting to the optimized efficiency, getting to a state where you can really challenge some of the business units that are lagging behind and understand what is the core issue of that, and then being able to produce realistic forecasting models linked to your overall sales performance can be achieved. Another biggest expense, I think, is the fuel expense, and those things can be kind of trended towards what's happening, and also consider the market information, hedging information that's going to be available within the organization. And once you have that non-direct labor, where you would have a little bit more flexibility based on the number of employees, number of your kind of size of the team, you can decide to either do the forecasting on them at the position level or at the individual employee level. And our recommendation there is try to have a model that is simple and straightforward, so it kind of avoids a lot of ambiguity. And most of the numbers, if you use percentage of the trends, can be achieved most accurately. And some of the expenditure can be looked at detail level, but try to make it a simple model that can really be understood and acted upon, and being able to quickly finish and use for analytics purpose. And then other components of your expenditure, your sales and general administrative expenditure, your sales commission structure, which can be linked to your sales volume itself, and then looking at the historical information there. And another interesting thing that I want to point out is, and I think this would be applicable for any industry, when you are looking at your operating expenditure that generally like bucketed into various GL accounts, your variable, some of them are variable, some of them are fixed, some of them are one-time expenditure, like your workman compensation sometimes would be more versus other times. So considering all of that, what we recommend in that space for those kind of expenditures is to give flexibility to the stakeholders, really understanding what is the trend of those expenditure, what is there, what are we doing for last 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and then have them pick a particular trend that is relevant for their business unit, and then fix that, so that whenever they make the changes, the trend gets applied and projects that over. They don't need to go and manually update. And there could be some accounts there, some kind of expenditure, when I say accounts, some portions of expenditure, that always there has to be a manual intervention that has to happen in order to be able to effectively forecast. But those items should be less and less compared to some of the things that you can achieve through trending process here in this particular section of the expenditure. Another biggest factor that we consider and we recommend when you do the P&L analysis, also don't forget to have a robust capital expenditure planning model, because that provides actually gives advantage of looking at two aspects of it. One, once you have an outflow of a capital, then it gives a clear visibility into cash flow and being able to effectively plan the cash flow planning. And the second is it can be integrated to really understand your lease expenses or depreciation expenses that would have a direct impact on how P&L performance is going to happen. But most importantly, having a clear view of the capital expenditure drives a lot of value in terms of the forecasting process. Again, we're not talking about doing projections of these and entering a lot of data. Once you have your initial capital plan done, and on a monthly basis, you are looking at really updating it to say, hey, we were planning to have this particular asset go in live in this month, but it's not happening. We have to spend more money and it's going at this time. Or there may be an acceleration that have happened on one of the particular asset and it's going in 2 months early than what it was planned for. So all those adjustments can be quickly made to the model, and the model has to be configured that, and that has a direct link to your P&L and being able to kind of provide output on your P&L performance. So considering all of this, if you really look at and kind of take look at all the components of your income statement that we talked about, the way that we recommend a driver-based forecasting to be approached is put an absolute focus on identifying the key drivers. Again, can I put a number at how many drivers you need to use? Not really, but don't go into an overwhelming process of identifying drivers for every single thing and have huge drivers that are identified that everybody needs to now understand. Keeping it simple, keeping it more based on the material impacts the P&L drives a lot of value. And understanding your P&L, understanding the metrics that drive, and then really look at, like we have done here, showed here, components of every aspect of the P&L and how they are driven, and then build model that integrates across all these components would have a high success rate in implementing driver-based forecasting and have your stakeholders, business functions, and business unit leadership being able to use that for not only updating and provide a visibility to top management, but also as an analytical tool for their particular unit and across the organization. So those two goals should not be forgotten. It's not just to get the information at the corporate. it's actually enabling the analytical process at your business unit level, at various levels of the organization, so that they can use this tool as a tool for their modeling purpose. What are the advantages of driver-based forecasting model? We talked about this in a little bit here and there. So ultimately, having clear visibility and being able to do benchmarking across your business unit, and understanding what levers have to be pulled when you make the decisions at the top management level, or driving more volume, or optimizing your operational expenditures through reducing overtime, whatever decisions that are required to improve the efficiency in the operations and increase the top line and the bottom line, can be clearly understood without any ambiguity, because you now know exactly what drivers are being used to arrive at the numbers, and that gives a clear picture of what has to be changed in order to be able to have a better performance, better P&L for the business unit and at the enterprise level as well. The other major advantage is the alignment with the functions, right? This is always an interesting subject or a conversation when you talk to the leadership across the enterprise. Is of, hey, finance does this, and I don't know how they came up with these numbers. So when they don't talk about it when you're doing planning or forecasting, but when there is an explanation required on why we have not achieved certain numbers, then the blame is kind of put it on to a finance organization to really, they have come up with the numbers, we don't know, we were never agreed to that. But building a model that enables the ownership and the responsibility in the right manner, and put into the ownership of the people who can influence that particular segment of the income statement is critical. And when you implement driver-based forecasting, that aspect has to be considered, and how the other functions can be brought into the process. Again, with the models that can be effectively updated without not a lot of time consuming from their regular day-to-day activities, but at the same time enables that ownership among the functions is very important. This is the journey. Again, you will not be able to probably do, if you are not there yet, you'll not be able to probably do that on the day one. But have a plan, and going through that journey of enabling different aspects of functions on their own segment, and being able to have that ownership is the ultimate goal of having a driver-based forecasting, and having right people look at the right information and do right analytics and make right decisions. And then the finance role itself now changes to more of an analytical function, more of the leader who kind of guards and brings all these functions into really talking to themselves and understand the financial implications of their decisions, and enable them to really take the decisions, is where the role changes to that level from probably a traditional approach of building these things together and always changing them, and not really have an influence on the decisions that influence the numbers. And then another thing is, once you have a unified approach and a process that kind of integrates into everything, then you'll see in my following slides, people and processes are very important in this aspect. And at the same time, being able to have a model that is consistently understood and across the all the stakeholders is another key aspect, because that enables easy transition, easy building the capability within the team. And then if you are like having one person from business unit A to going to business unit B, then the transition into forecasting models is going to be clean, and they understand what they're doing. They can quickly get up to speed instead of going through different models at different units and really not know what is the base for doing it differently. And ultimate goal of it is to increase the forecast accuracy, and I think driver-based forecasting really help you to have very good accuracy levels and have a clear visibility on the forecasting process. So Techwave, I mean, so far we have seen how it has to be approached, what drivers should be used, and how these models have to be built. What are the components and change management that has to go through. And now I'm going to spend a few minutes around what Techwave has done in this space. We have actually clearly built models for various clients of ours, and we internally also have accelerators and rapid deployment solutions that addresses these needs and then actually help irrespective of technology, right? Technology is a key component of this, and some organizations based on their level can do this just using Excel, but some organizations definitely need robust technologies that are there in the market, right? Whether it's SAP, Hyperion, or other cloud-based analytical planning tools that are available today. But most important thing is having a process, having a real understanding of your income statement, and then being able to take advantage of technology in your landscape and then integrate everything into the process using technology is a real value. And we are mastered at that. We have models, we have expertise, and people in our organization that spans across various technologies and bring both the process expertise and the technology expertise along with the domain expertise to really implement this successfully and walk through the journey with you and with your organization. Again, this kind of provides a quick view of integrated enterprise performance management methodology that we use. We believe in a completely integrated approach of doing the financial consolidations, doing annual planning process, doing financial forecasting, rolling forecasting, and all that stuff, and then linking all of them into an integrated management reporting is critical for successful financial performance management and really getting the value out of that investment. Again, I was talking about the components of our methodology, process, people, and tools, right? We really put tool at the end because if you don't have a process optimization done, if you don't have a real investment on the people and making sure they understand the value of it, making sure they understand the analytics and the drivers that are required to understand their P&L performance, and then being able to influence that change management process, is those two things are process and people are utmost important. Then integration of the technology and providing them a lot of time saving through data integration, through providing the real-time information to them and having ready-made information for them to do analytics, scenario-based analytics, what-if analysis, and all that stuff can be taken care by technology. And technology now is very advanced in terms of being able to handle any level of volume of data and any complex scenarios that are out there across the food service industry can be achieved. But the importance definitely has to be given to process optimization and people enablement along with the technology integration. So this is kind of gives you a view of how we look at things when we really consider process, people, and technology. We really kind of carefully go in. This is a very simplistic example, but we have done extensive mapping around the process and how it should be implemented across various segments of the business. And then ultimately, the Techwave solutions objective is to, like I said, have an integrated solution, have a driver-based approach in case of the planning and forecasting, have a functional driven models that can be owned by respective responsibility departments. And then the biggest thing on the technology side is to have a proper integration of the data from various systems that it holds in, whether your ERP systems or your enterprise data warehouse or your HR systems, and all those integration, and provide a common platform to ultimately have a platform that delivers flexible reporting, advanced analytics, and then various options for really understanding in making decisions on timely fashion to influence and achieve goals and business targets. So that's our intention. And at Techwave, we definitely have a lot of value to bring to our clients in this space. We have a strongest delivery mechanism with experts that are domain experts, that are subject matter experts in terms of the finance function, or sales and operations planning, or planning in overall enterprise end-to-end planning. We have a robust methodology and quality assurance processes, and then we ensure we put our client first in terms of the delivery, ensure that there is a proper and integrated way of delivering these solutions. We do a lot of investments in terms of building solutions that are accelerators for us, and we bring that to the table when we go into the implementations of these processes. I'm not really focusing on any particular technology across technology spectrum here, and we bring those things to cut short your implementation journey and understand how you can quickly leverage things like driver-based forecasting to add value to your business. We do a lot of investment along with our partners, the OEM partners, the product vendors. We build strong leadership commitment into the organizations that we work with. Like Raj Randala was mentioning, we have a 100% commitment retention ratio of the clients. That's because of the commitment that we provide, both from the resources that are engaged to do the work, all the way through the leadership that gets involved into making sure the engagement is successfully delivering the value that client has invested for. And this is kind of view of some of the credentials that we have in the space. Been continuously recognized as a leading provider of enterprise performance management solutions. Have been continuously ranked as an organization that is growing by an Inc. 500 and CIO magazine, CFO magazine, various other aspects of business evaluation process. And we are really a global organization that we kind of leverage the synergies across different industries, across different domains, and bring a best customized solution for the industry that we are working with. In this case, food service distribution. We definitely have an extensive experience in helping and bringing the domain knowledge to our clients. And this is a view of our global presence. Like I said, we have covered most of the regions. But again, this is important because they kind of demonstrate the depth of understanding that we have, depth of different scenarios, especially if you are a global organization. We have that expertise of working with the local regions and people that are kind of focusing on the regions that can enable your processes at each of the locations. This is our contact information, and you can reach us through directly an email, or you can follow us on our LinkedIn, and we can also be followed at Twitter. So please definitely feel free to contact us for any questions that you have through this WebEx, and we would be happy to answer and get back to you with the right information. With that said, we have 10 more minutes. I would definitely want to open this up for any questions that anybody may have. And Raj Randala, over to you for moderating the questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Raj Gummadapu. We are now going to begin answering the questions submitted during today's presentation. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. Raj, our first question is from Richard, and his question is, we do not have a highly sophisticated reporting system, but we use spreadsheets still. Is there any way driver-based planning be possible with spreadsheets?
I mean, great question actually, and in most of the cases, actually, kind of building these models starts with Excel. There is no shame in using Excel. We all know Excel is a robust tool, but at the same time, it is important to understand the use of technology, right? Based on the size of your organization and based on where you are in the journey, I would definitely recommend to look at a suitable technology platform that can actually save a lot of time in data gathering and some of the typical issues that you could have with Excel in managing files, versioning, data redundancy, data accuracy, and those kind of things. But starting journey has to be, you have to understand your model in Excel, and then enablement of technology comes as a piece. Now you have to get started somewhere. I would definitely recommend you to get started with Excel and then look at a suitable technology platform.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. The other question I have is from Ganesh. He says, what are the biggest hurdles implementing driver-based planning, and what are some, do you have any references where you have implemented driver-based planning forecasting?
I mean, hurdles definitely comes through really understanding and agreeing on the drivers, right? So what are the drivers should be used for what aspect? I mean, if you talk about to different stakeholders, they have different opinions, but that's where you have to come through the challenge and really understand what impacts, what kind of metric impacts what section of the P&L, and then make a decisions based on that. That's one thing. And the second thing is the real alignment thing, a challenge that I believe the organization should really sit down and talk and overcome is functional alignment. Having right ownership that I've talked through entire my presentation is a critical aspect of successful driver-based forecasting implementation. So the alignment is another challenge, and it's again can be resolved by having a series of discussions at a management level and having a right sponsorship and ownership from management on these things. And from a references standpoint, we have plenty of references where we have successfully implemented this. I would definitely, we would be happy to provide that and success stories. You can directly reach out to us about that, and we will be happy to provide that.
Okay, thank you. I have one question I have which was asked before. Mr. Palmer was asking, is there a preferred or optimal number of drivers to identify and manage on an ongoing basis? I believe it's just asking how many number of drivers that needs to be managed.
I wish there is a magic bullet for that, right? But the fact of it is, it depends. It depends on your business, depends on various other things on your P&L, how it drives. My recommendation is to keep it to minimum, keep it to a number that can be managed and that has the biggest and material impact on your P&L. It would be 10, 20, but don't, again, I mentioned this in the presentation as well, you should not have too many drivers and overwhelm the stakeholders and lose the focus on achieving the end goal. So ultimately the importance of having a right size drivers is critical, but it has to be really achieved or identified through analysis of the business.
Okay, thank you, Raj. That's all I have from the question side. With that being said, thank you, Raj, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. If you have any questions, please contact us through the contact given by Raj. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view the recording of today's webinar. On behalf of Techwave and our presenters, thank you for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.